Hello, everybody. If you can turn on your cameras, it would be great to see your faces, but we completely understand if that's not possible. I want to welcome everybody to the second session of Reimagine series, Aging is Grief, Aging is Growth. My name is Andrew Engel. I am senior programmer at Reimagine. My pronouns are he, him. I am a white cisgender male. Today I'm wearing glasses, a floral patterned blue shirt, and I've got a bright orange background behind me. Reimagine is a nonprofit organization catalyzing a uniquely powerful community, people of different backgrounds, different ages, races, and faiths, and people of no faith, all coming together in the hopes of healing ourselves and the world. We specifically support each other in facing adversity, loss, and mortality, and actively channel life's biggest challenges into meaningful action and growth. Last week in our series, which was wonderful, I hope some of you on this call today were there last week. We asked the question, what is elderhood? And we have three excellent speakers. Omishade Bernie Scott, who is the founder of the Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause. We had Jeff Hamui, who is the co-founder of the Modern Elder Academy. And we had the fabulous June Millington, co-founder of the seminal 1970s band Fanny, all women's rock band. Check out the documentary on PBS if you haven't seen it. She's also the co-founder of the Institute for Musical Arts, which is essentially rock and roll camp for girls. And what we learned is that elderhood isn't something with a specific age attached to it, although there were audience members who disagreed that someone in their 50s could be an elder. What resonated with me was the idea that elderhood isn't bestowed. You become one when you learn to manage change. And sure, there's growth when we age, but at the same time, there's grief. And the most successful agers are the ones who figure out how to make that transition and to pivot. I also learned that elderhood is about having wisdom to share, and at the same time, you're open to learning something new. The value of intergenerational exchange was shared among all our speakers. As we age, I also learned that you can see things with fresh eyes. Omishade Bernie Scott said that an elder possesses a decoder ring for things that once were illegible. I love that. And June Millington said, quote, I think elderhood is about molting. Maybe there are feathers you are holding onto that you just don't need anymore. You know, you don't need to fly so far. End of quote. I'm glad you're all here. And a special shout out to everyone who joined us last week. I hope you'll register for the final event in this series next Wednesday. I'll put a link for that in the chat later. We're interested in knowing where you're located if you haven't posted that in the chat already. So please do so. There's a very helpful map, native-land.ca. You can check out that map to learn about locations of Indigenous people in your area. For example, I'm in Lenape-Hoking, where a large city called New York is located on occupied land. For those who wish, click on the CC icon to get a live transcript of what's being said. And you can save the chat by clicking on the three dots in the chat box. Feel free to send me a note in the chat if you're having any technical issues. I might be able to help you. And I wanted to make sure everyone knows that you will get a recording of this, whether you're here or not, in your inbox a couple days from now. So don't worry about that. Now I'm going to stop slide sharing. I can see you all much better now. In learning about the work of speakers from last week, it became obvious to me that what underlies it all is the pursuit of justice, undoing ageism, celebrating our growth, and honoring our grief. So with that said, I'm going to hand this off to the good people at Old School, Kyrie Carpenter and Ryan Backer. They are the co-founders of Old School with Ashton Applewhite, who's the author of This Chair Rocks, a manifesto against ageism. Old School curates, creates, commissions, and disseminates free resources to educate people about ageism and how to end it. I hope you'll learn more about them. We're going to put a link in the chat about that. You can read the full bios of Kyrie and Ryan there. That's it. That's my spiel. And now I'm going to hand this off to Kyrie and Ryan.
Thanks so much, Andy. Yeah, really honored to be here with you all. Enjoyed. Last week's session was a really lively conversation, and I know I speak for both Ryan and myself saying we're really excited to be here with you. So often a lot of we do is a ton of education around ageism, and it's usually forced into a lunch and learn and really fast paced and fire hose of information. And we were really excited about the opportunity when Andy came to us to collaborate on something that had a little bit more space and a little more time, and really exploring this grief that comes with aging, and what an important role grieving plays in our aging process, and how to undo ageism with that grief. And really, we're hoping to spend some time together being really thoughtful, both internally and together, about that intersection. And sort of, I'm going to kick us off here, and then I'll pass the baton to Ryan, and we'll sort of go back and forth. But to just sort of start grounding us in this exploration, I do want to name, actually, before I start to, that during the workshop, about halfway through, you're going to have some time to journal on your own. So make sure you have something to do that with. If you want to use your computer, of course, that's great. Or if you want to grab pen and paper, sort of make time in the next 20 minutes or so to do that. And then to get us started and to get us grounded and really thinking about loss and age-related loss, and to really get a sense of who's in the room, and to connect us with each other through this loss, I want you all to think about the fact that at every age, we experience loss. And today we're going to work on defining loss in the context of age and everything that can happen there. And so to start, I'm going to have you all fill out a word cloud with the age-related losses that you've experienced. So I'm going to share my screen here, and this is a website called Mentimeter. So you can scan that QR code, or you can go to the link that I just put in the chat. And what you're going to do is type in age-related losses that you've experienced. And the way this works is the more times the same answer gets given, the bigger that word's going to be. So and you can answer as many times as you want. So if you see something up there that strikes that, like, me too, try to type it the same way, and because then it'll get bigger, and we'll kind of be able to get a picture. So your hair color changed or got lost. Yep. Status. Great. So just take a minute, and what age-related losses have you experienced? Seeing parents, changes in mobility, loved ones.
How do I get to the chat?
Down in the bottom of your screen, there should be a bunch of little icons. One says like mute, stop video, and one says chat. And if you click it there, you should be able to
I don't have one of those. I have whiteboards, apps.
Whiteboards and apps. Yeah, it should be in that same bar. There should be one that says chat.
If you see 3 dots, you might have to click on the 3 dots in order to
I found
get
it.
to the chat.
So you should be seeing other people's responses are up here on the screen. So if you're looking at the shared screen, see someone asking where the responses are. So they've created a word cloud. So you can see that the most common answer was health, friends, and parents. That's why they're the biggest. But you can look around and see, yeah, some memory is up there, both hair and hair color, things related to strengths, loved ones, different abilities, finances, eyesight, agency, virginity, sexuality, engaging in sex, all the things that, so I really want you to be thinking about this as you're looking to it. And all of these are things people here with us today have lost.
And Kyrie, I'm putting the ones from the chat in the word cloud so we can reflect those.
Perfect. Yeah. So you can see that there's, and so I want you to sort of start looking at these. I want you to start noticing something about them. And we're kind of seeding the chat here too, thinking about that, you know, most of us have probably lost our baby fat. Many of us have probably lost our virginity. You know, we've lost baby teeth. Maybe we've lost our adult teeth at different points in our life. Hearing, maybe we've lost certain identities. So go ahead and get your last thoughts in there. And then I really just want us to just take a moment and just sit with the loss, recognizing that everybody here has had age-related losses.
Thanks so much, Kyrie. So yeah, this is, you know, a lot of different things that we experience as we age. And I think it's important to look at how a lot of these answers, you know, when we think of age-related losses, a lot of these answers are most directly related to older age. So as part of our work, Kyrie and I like to explore the fact that when we talk about aging, only focusing on older age is a part of ageism. It's what keeps ageism going. And, you know, for some of you, it might be the first time that you've heard of this word ageism. And that's totally okay because, you know, for a lot of us, it's a new concept and it's just starting to be talked about more widely across the world, actually. So the World Health Organization recently, a few years ago, came up with a definition of ageism that's really helpful. And I'll share, just bear with me as I share my screen to share that definition with you. Fantastic. So ageism is stereotypes. So that another way of talking about stereotypes is what we think. Prejudice, another way to say that is how we feel, our emotions, and discrimination. So how we act based off of how we feel and how we think towards others or ourselves based on age. So it's a pretty simple definition. Sometimes people think that ageism is only related to older people, but according to the World Health Organization and the work that we do is to show that it really affects everyone across the entire aging spectrum. So the ageism that is prevalent in our culture also, you know, sort of intersects with these losses that we've talked about, all of the different losses, you know. For some people, leaving high school is a age-related loss, you know, losing that that experience of childhood in a way. You know, as we go through these natural processes of aging, they really, society sort of shifts the way that we think about these losses, especially as we get into older age. It shifts the way we think about these losses into a personal failure and a disease. So a really good example of how this manifests is the $1 trillion anti-aging industry. This is a global industry. A synonym of anti-aging is death. It dumbfounds me how this industry does so well, but it does. And part of our work is to sort of show that we can age without trying to stop it. And so I'll share a quote with you of another person next to Ashton who's doing such incredible work in this field, is an academic named Margaret Morgan Roth-Gillette, who some of you may know her work. And she has a really fantastic quote, which I'll share with you right now. It's on the screen as well. Therapists, physicians, and philosophers tend to talk about what they consider the normal, predictable limitations and losses that come with growing old, but shaming should not be one of them. So I'll turn it over to Kyrie to sort of explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, we're going to explore this idea of the shaming and how that compounds loss. And then one more logistical aside, depending on how time flows, we may have time for questions at the end, but we want to make sure any questions get answered, whether we have time or not. So throughout the workshop, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. And what we're going to do is if there's any time left over at the end, we'll address as many as we can. And if we end up running right to the end and don't have time, with our organization, Old School, we actually host weekly office hours at this same time every Wednesday. A lot of our office hourians are here this week, which is a Ask Anything. And we're going to dedicate next week's office hours to answering any Q&A questions that come up. And so just put them in the chat. We'll download the chat. We'll bring them there. If you can't come, we will also record it and make sure it gets sent out to you, because we do think that's such an important part of this dialogue, is the ability for you to express what you're more curious about, and for us to be able to, not give you an answer because we're not those sorts of folks, but at least explore it with you, maybe point you in the direction of some other people who are also exploring it together. So I just want to name that's how we're going to kind of hold a space for questions. So just put those in the chat and they will get answered either today or next week. So going back to that shame, so we're thinking about, there's these losses that we all experience throughout life. Any sort of a change is a loss, a move from something old to something new. And a lot of these losses occur at different points in time. Like we said, across our lifespan, we're experiencing these age-related losses again, whether it's baby fat, baby teeth, virginity, like leaving high school, whether it's, losing a partner, losing a limb, losing friends, losing hair color, losing jobs, identities. We all experience these losses. And what's happening is, in the current cultural context we live in, and I'm Ryan, well, I guess Ryan is in Canada and I'm in America, but still the Western capitalistic culture. So if you aren't in one of those, you'll have to take my word for it. But that culture prizes constant improvement and betterment. There's an entire self-help industry dedicated to telling us what's wrong with us and then how to fix it. And this doesn't work because there isn't anything missing. None of us are deficient. We are all, whole human beings. But in order to sell us anything, whether it's, a self-help book or an anti-aging cream, marketers have to convince us that we're somehow deficient and that there's something wrong. And this ends up adding a stigma to loss, that it's not okay to not have. It's not okay for things to exist at a time and then not exist at a later time. Our culture tells us it's better to have, even if that is an excess, than to not have. That having is always better. And you can see that this stigma around loss, that having lost is bad, is going to intersect with stigma around aging, that ageism that Ryan was mentioning. And ageism does get really tricky, kind of, as Ryan was saying too, it's discrimination based on any age. And one of the really interesting facets of ageism is that the same person can experience age privilege and age discrimination in the exact same day. So if I rewind my own clock and I think about myself in my early 20s, I might have experienced some age privilege trying to get into a nightclub on a Friday night, and then some age discrimination Monday morning when I was applying for a job that, because of my youth, they thought I wasn't competent enough for. And, you know, in our society too, with regards to loss, more is always better. So loss is therefore bad. And also we want to be young forever. There's this idea that to age is to fail and that to lose is to fail. And so these stigmas compound the suffering and challenges that come with loss and aging. You know, and so, yeah, all those things that we all listed up at the beginning, losing those is painful. Loss hurts, but what happens is when we're told that we're not supposed to experience loss and we're not supposed to age, which is the messages, you know, we're getting from media, it becomes this personal failure, and we start to try to hide our ages or hide our losses, and we hold them in rather than giving them space to be honored and to be grieved. And that's really, you know, what we want to explore here today is what happens when we really look at what we've experienced through our life, and what we've lost, and hold space and grieve it. Um, because the truth is, we can't get any older without experiencing loss. So rather than attempting to try to not lose anything or attempting to stay forever young, we're going to try to hold those things in harmony. And I love this sense of thinking about harmony. You know, a harmony is two different musical notes, two different things, but heard together create an even more beautiful sound than they did separately. So what happens if we hold one note of this age-related loss while being age affirming? So while not bemoaning it and saying that it's wrong or bad, how can we hold an age affirming attitude, you know, an anti-ageist attitude, while also honoring these age related losses? And so that's really what we're going to dive in and explore here together. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan, who's going to ground us in our reflection and journaling. And then y'all are going to have some time if you want to chat with others about what's coming up around this.
Thanks so much, Kyrie. Yeah, so as we sort of let this topic marinate, it's a challenging topic. You know, when Kyrie and I present on ageism, it's a challenging topic, but then bringing the idea of loss into it, I feel like, again, going back to this double stigma, it's almost doubly as challenging. So with this next section of the workshop, I really want us to sort of, yeah, ground with these ideas. We've put a lot of information out there already, just like a half hour into the workshop, less than a half hour into the workshop. So there's, you know, a lot to marinate with, and a lot to connect with what we just said. And you know, I really feel like when I come into these spaces and I talk about ageism, especially with a lot of folks who are older than me, I like to say that we really are our own teachers. So you all know enough about this topic to really explore it on your own. I think in a lot of ways, Kyrie and I are just sort of catalysts for getting those thoughts out there. So as we go into the next 15 minutes or so of this guided reflection, I really want you to use the prompts that I'm giving to explore this on your own, in whatever way you feel comfortable with. So if you were at the last session, you might have noticed that June Millington mentioned that she's a Buddhist. And, you know, there's probably, considering how many people are here, there's probably also some Buddhists here with us and thinking about this topic. There's probably other Buddhists here. And I definitely meditate. I try to meditate daily, and I definitely learn a lot from the teachings of the Buddha. If there's folks here who aren't meditators, who aren't Buddhists, that's totally okay. I'm just going to invite you, a lot of what I do with meditation is just being with what is. I live in a city, you know, so meditating in silence, I get a lot of interaction with my world around me. And with this, I really want you to interact with this topic that we're going through. So first things first, I'll invite you to get comfortable. Hopefully you already are, but maybe there's just like 10% more comfort that you can find. It might help to put your feet on the floor. You might want to stand through this. If you are feeling restless and you want to walk around, or if you're already walking around while you're listening to me, feel free. You don't have to be in stillness, and I want you to adjust as much as you need to as you go through this. So if you want to shut your eyes, I'll invite you to do that, but please feel like you don't have to. Or even if you just want to turn away from the screen, it's nice to get some rest from the screen, especially with a longer session like this one. All right, so let's get into it. First things first, we've been talking a lot about age. I'll invite you to be with the age that you are right now. So think about that number. And just notice if there's feelings coming up about that number, and just be with those feelings. Just be with what is. And along with that number, I'll invite you to think of it in another way. Think about the year that you were born. Does thinking about the year you were born land differently than the age you are right now? That other number, which number feels more comfortable for you? And now I'll invite you to notice, is there any ageism coming up? Do you have any friction with these numbers? Do you have any friction with the amount of time that you've been here on Earth? Is there any discomfort coming up? Maybe even fear. And now I'll invite you to go back to those topics that we were talking about before, the different ways that we've experienced loss as we've aged, or the age-related losses. So a big topic for that was health. Losing health. How can we grieve the loss of health while also being confident with all that we've experienced, all that we've been through over the years? All the good and bad decisions that we made about our health to get us to where we are today. Another big topic was loss of loved ones. So let's just take a moment now to honor those who came before us, even folks who might have been the same age as us or even younger than us who we've lost. And I'll invite you to think about what their aging process, or maybe their aging process had been cut short. What did that teach us about our own aging process, our own experience with our life? with our lifespan. Maybe we had grandparents who showed us what it was like to live a good life to the very end. Or maybe we had loved ones, maybe even children who we've lost. And what did their short lives teach you about the life that you're leading now? We can also think about other losses related to aging, like loss of work, opportunity, maybe loss of friends, just not from death, just loss over time, loss of community. Maybe even loss of children who have moved on to live their own lives. There's also, I see in the chat things that might have been. So the loss of opportunity, the loss of potential that's showing up. There might be losses that we didn't bring voice to yet. There might be shame around some of these losses that we didn't feel comfortable sharing with the group, or something that our mind doesn't want to bring up because it's too hard to think of. Maybe some of these changes are happening in this moment. Maybe a lot of this has happened in the past, or maybe for some of us, a lot of these changes, a lot of these losses are yet to come. And when we talk about aging and when we talk about loss, there's so much focused on the body, on time's effect on the body. What does this bring up for you? I'll invite you to even think about, where do you feel these losses in your body when you think of it? You might be thinking of lost certain abilities that you've lost over the years. You might even be experiencing pain right now, and you can reflect on a loss of comfort. And as we go through this and we're quiet, in this day and age, it's not often that we get this opportunity to be quiet with ourselves. You might be experiencing other bodily sensations that are coming up. So this might be a weight on your shoulders or a pit in your stomach. Or maybe even a pain in your heart. For me right now, probably because I'm presenting, this happens a lot. I get a warmth in my face and a tickle in my throat. What are the bodily experiences that you're experiencing right now with talking about aging and loss? And can we just allow these sensations? Just like we're not trying to fix these losses or change these losses or replace these losses, can we just be with how we're feeling in our body around this topic? Can we just let it be there? Can we say yes? Can we remember that grieving is how we grow through loss? And the older we get, the more opportunity we have to grow. And as we reflect on this aging process, can we go back to the idea of ageism? Why haven't we ever thought about this topic before so deeply? How has ageism in our lives affected us to not think about this topic more? Where has it prevented us from just saying yes to aging, to being with aging? And if you're feeling compelled to experience this embodiment for a while on your own, you are more than welcome to. Don't listen to what I'm about to say if that's the case. But if you're wanting to explore more uh, physically, something tangibly, I already see that folks are writing a lot in the chat. That's fantastic. I'll invite you to move on to a writing exercise. So we're going to uncover the capacity and opportunities that grieving our losses provide. And I'm going to pull up a journal prompt in a second. And we're going to give you about 10 minutes to journal on your own. If folks want to keep writing in the chat, you are more than welcome to. It doesn't necessarily have to be a individual process. We can do this process in community if you want, but I want to give folks the opportunity. If you want to stay in quiet contemplation, you're welcome to do that. If you want to journal on your own, you're welcome to do that too. So let me share my screen once more with the journaling prompt here. So what would be the most nourishing for the part of you grieving these age-related losses to hear right now? And Kyrie is putting it in the chat. So we invite you to write a letter to yourself. oh, sorry, a letter to that part of you, offering what you most need right now. So again, what would be the most nourishing for the part of you that is grieving these age-related losses to hear right now? Write that part of you a letter offering it this.
We're going to give you all 10 minutes. We're going to stay silent for 10 minutes so you have a chance, as Ryan said, to journal on your own, or if you want to voice it, you feel free to put that in the chat, but we're just going to be quiet for those who are reflecting internally or journaling for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back together. 1 minute left. All right, and that's time. I'm gonna come back together. Thank you all for holding that quiet space for all of us to continue to reflect and to take some time for grief and kindness to ourselves. I would love to, we're on Zoom like this, it can feel magically connecting because we're all over the world, but also so different than being in person where you can really feel in your body more what's going on. And so to help kind of bring some of that attunement in, I'd love for someone who feels comfortable to come off mute, or folks could use the chat to just sort of share what's coming up for you right now. How is this experience going for you? Just sort of a little bit of a reflection of your process in the moment. Anyone want to come off mute and share?
I would be happy to do so.
Thank you.
So for me, this is very timely because this has been a year of leaving my life's work of 40 years, losing my second parent within 2 years, just 6 months ago, my mother, and of course, all of the changes that are happening to our bodies and or our minds. So for me, I have spent a large amount of time focused on what does it mean to age and how can I grow from this, as pointed out. And I think I'm pretty spot on as best as I can be. That doesn't mean there aren't days that are harder than others, but not a but, an and. And we are, yes, I'm being taught that daily by my adult children and my parts. So yes, I think for all of us, it's very difficult when we are experiencing changes, and particularly pain that some people talk about, whether it's psychic pain or physical. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you so much. Anybody else feel called to share their process in the moment? Yeah, Joan.
Just happy to be able to settle into this space because it's something that has been with me for a while. I'm 72 and it's just really hitting me, my losses in terms of aging, and just to give myself this time with you all to be in this space. And one thing that I'm realizing so much is how much I do need this. I've lost a lot of older friends, not necessarily to death, but just in terms of circumstance. And so I do need to be with other people that are more my age, in terms of just acknowledging what's happening and just making space for it. So thank you for this.
Thank you, Joan. Yeah, as I sort of said at the top, Ryan and I were so excited to partner with Andy and to have a space where we could go a little slower and we could really be together, around a topic that you can't rush through. Like there's no quick fix to grief, as we all know. And it's just, yeah, it's really special to be able to take the time with you all. Thank you both, Meredith and Joan, for sharing. Yeah, so, we're really hoping again in this. Oh, go ahead, Bevan.
Unmute. This is kind of hard to say. I used to be a hospice chaplain, and I learned how important the presence of another human being is to someone, even if you're not speaking, but just being there. But it also just struck me. I remembered a story about a patient who was near the end of death, and we asked her what she wanted, and she said, I want somebody to rock me. She only weighed about maybe 80 pounds. And so I lifted her up and put her in the nurse's arms, and she rocked her, and how much peace that gave her. And I've just lost two of my children. And one 4 years ago, one 4 months ago. And how much I wish someone could hold me, how much as we get older, when a child is hurting, we hold them, we touch them. I'm raising my two grandsons now, and I'm always holding them and hugging them and touching them and that type of thing. But as we get older, we don't get as much touch, unless a doctor's doing something to us, or we happen to run into a friend to get a quick hug, and I just wish there was more of that in our culture, where I just came deeply into that place of wishing I wasn't alone, and I had someone around to give me a hug, So
We're together in person, Bevan. I think quite a few of us would be all doing a big group hug with you now. Hopefully you can feel that, yeah, energetically. And thank you for bringing that up. That's such a crucial part of this. The loss of human touch is my background is working in. I came to this work by being a therapist in long-term care, and on a memory care floor. And yeah, everyone that I worked with was starved for touch. And of course, for those of you who have seen some other MFTs, LMTs, also, you're not supposed to touch clients. It's like a pretty big no.
right.
We did lots of touching. It's like, it's just that is what is so important.
I was a chaplain. And if I walk by some people, they said, you didn't give me a hug, and the chaplains could hug. But it was sad. It was sad. They were starving for human touch. And I think the last couple of weeks is the first time I've felt it.
Thank you for sharing that, Bevan. It's a really good reminder for all of us to go give someone a hug today.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. We're gonna continue in the space where we're gonna move into a breakout room. You're gonna get to be with 3 to 5 other folks and reflect a little bit more together, get a little bit of that connection. We are such a big group here. And I just want to share a couple more ideas before we send you into the breakout room too, that Ryan mentioned in the reflection, that grieving is a way we grow through loss. And I mentioned, at the beginning, that there's a narrative in our culture that something is wrong with us and we're deficient, and that's why we need self-help, and that actually loss, is bad, is something's missing and needs to be filled in, and that isn't the true way of things. There's no way. You can see this definition of healing too. Healing is not a way of going back. There's no way, Bevan, as you shared, there's no way to replace your children. There's no way to go back to that. There's no way to replace limbs, there's no way to replace these things that we've lost. But healing, for those of us, who've been through loss, which we now know as all of us from our word cloud, is not a way of going back to the way things were, but it's a way of going forward and finding that new normal. One of a beautiful way that I've heard it put too is that, the pain doesn't go away, that loss doesn't go away, but we learn how to hold it better and walk with it. And that's why this grieving is so important. Rather than rejecting the idea of loss, trying not to let anything get lost, which we know, doesn't work. When we grieve, we can actually grow through that loss. We can continue to unfold in wholeness together. And so I just want to sort of share that as inspiration to spend a little bit of time together, sort of sharing how we're all growing today. So you're going to be in a breakout room for 15 minutes. There's going to be 3 to 5 people in there. I also want to say you're going to get an invitation to go to this breakout room, and it is just that. It's an invitation. You can RSVP yes or no. If you are not feeling chatty, you don't want to end up in a room with strangers, or for whatever reason it might be that you don't want to join the breakout room, know that it is an invitation, not a requirement. So you can just choose not to go to it. That's why we're going to put 3 to 5 folks in a room to make sure nobody is alone. So if you don't go, then you can just have some more quiet reflection time. That's your own choice. But I do hope there is a magic that can happen in those breakout rooms where we can feel even more connected. And when you get to that breakout room, what you're going to do is you're going to share something that you know now that you didn't know, or maybe you just forgotten. Our process of human growth, one of my mentors says, I remember being quite exasperated, like, I've already worked on this before. And maybe you all have had that experience. Like, I thought I'd already worked on that people pleasing, or that, whatever it is. And one of my mentors says, it isn't about like fixing that thing, right? This like whole, but it's about the cycles of remembering and forgetting getting shorter. There's that people pleasing again. Okay, love that part of me. Hold it. Yes, it's there. Now I remember that it's there, to not fall into it. There's that loss and grieving again. So, so maybe there's something that you forgot that today you were reminded of, that we're helping shorten that cycle of. Maybe you forgot to grieve and you were trying to hold on tightly and not let anything else get lost. Or maybe there's something new that you've uncovered in yourself that you want to share. So when you get to these rooms, you're going to share something that you didn't know before you came here, or that you'd forgotten at the start of this workshop. And you're going to share in a learning circle style. And for those of you who don't know what that means, you're going to have 15 minutes, 3 to 5 people. So do some quick math when you get there. If there's 3 of you, it's about 5 minutes per person. If there's 5 of you, it's 3 minutes per person. And go around and let each person have their time. It's helpful to pick a timekeeper in the beginning. So just have someone say, yeah, I'll do that. And the kindest way I found to do this is that person sort of sets a timer for, the number of people divided by 15 minutes. And if someone approaches that amount of time, you can kind of give them the wrap it up hand signal gently. Or one of my favorite, there's an improv show in San Francisco where I spend a lot of time called You're Gonna Die. And if someone goes over their time, they hug them off stage. So Bev and I wish we were together, we could, hug off. It's a really lovely way to just like, so you can also give someone like the virtual hug off stage if they're going over time, just because we want to make sure that time is shared equitably. And this stuff is so tender, it can get really easy to lose track of time. So this is not, no one's bad. It just, it's easy to get caught up. So yeah, you're going to get that invite soon too. So that's what you're going to be doing in that breakout room. Ryan put the prompt in the chat. Share something that you know now, or that you didn't know before, or you've forgotten about. And so you're each going to have a chance for up to your amount of time to share. And then if there's time left over, if people went a little faster, then you can have an open discussion. But the goal is that when each person is sharing, you're really just actively listening. So you don't respond when it comes to your turn. You're just letting them be heard. Don't be planning, what you're saying or responding. Just let their voice be spoken into the group. And then when everyone's had a chance to do that, if there's any time left over, you can have a bit of an open discussion. And then when we come back, we'll do a little wrap up, and any time that's left over, we'll do some Q&A.
So Kyrie, I think I'm going to open the rooms now, and I may do some shuffling of folks in case there's no one in your room or not enough. So please be patient. Here we go. I'm opening the rooms.
Andy, if you need us to go to a room so someone's not alone, let us know, but otherwise we can just
Will do. I'm starting to
hang here.
just shuffling folks around. Let's see.
Do you want help at all? I see like Kristen, it looks like Kristen and Rachel are alone. Do you want me to put them together?
I just put Kristen
Maybe
into
together.
6.
Oh, great. Okay.
Um,
Like I know she was really active in the chat. I want to make sure.
and then we have Josie and Marilyn in room 1. If
Great.
maybe one of you want to join that one, you can, or I can. Oh, actually, let's see. I'm going to move Rachel in room 4 to room.
Perfect.
Come on.
And that should be good. Yeah, totally fine to join, but also found in the past, like it does kind of disrupt the vibe when the presenter is in there. Then it's like, oh, the expert's here. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
the discussions are better actually when we're not there.
All right, so I'm scanning, and I think we've got a minimum of 3 for every open room. Is that right?
Perfect. And apologies those of you who didn't join for getting to hear the behind the scenes
Yeah. Well,
chat here.
okay.
It
So
looks like in 13, there's Donald and Bevan.
let's see if I can move. Should I move someone from like a larger group into their group? Or is that disruptive?
I think
We can just leave them.
yeah.
Do you think Donald is? Yeah, I mean,
Hopefully
if he
Donald's
clicked,
really there. That would be my only
Yeah.
concern is that hopefully Donald is really there and Bevan's
I
not
could
just
I could
alone.
go in and just ask, are you okay being alone? If not, we can put you with a bigger group
Perfect.
and we
Yeah.
can put them in one.
Like room 6 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go in right now.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan.
Kyrie, this is going really well. Thank you.
It's really tender.
Yeah.
Thanks for creating the space for it.
Oh, you're really creating the space. Like I wasn't registering so much with the slowness and with that intention. And it was pretty intense last week, a lot going on. And I just love I love the quiet in this. They're good,
That's
Ryan?
what we were there. What'd they say? It was the verdict, Ryan?
They were good. I wonder if we should maybe, because there might be participants in this main space who are having quiet contemplation.
We should,
Should
why don't
we
we
go to
go
a breakout
why
room?
don't we go to, yeah, let's all go to 12.
Great.
Yvette, I'm going to try to get you back into two. Yvette, I still hear some noise coming from your computer, and I don't know if you're able to figure out how to stop the noise coming from your computer. Is there maybe another window in your laptop that's turned on to some like YouTube video, maybe? No? I don't know what to say. Um, hmm. Do you want to try, do you have the original Zoom link for this event? And maybe you'd be able to log out and then come back in, and I'll let you in.
Okay, we're done in 15 minutes. I'm at work. Is it okay if I just.
You could just call it a day, Yvette, and you'll get the recording. And I'm so sorry this didn't work out for you.
Okay, I don't know what happened. I was in room 8, then it kicked me out and threw me in room 2, but okay. But this has been great, so thank you.
Thank you for coming, Yvette, and sorry for these troubles.
Not a problem. Okay, have a great day.
You too. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back, everybody.
Amazing. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had some fantastic conversations. So we have time to do a little debrief. So were there patterns? If you have any patterns that you noticed in your group, please feel free to put it in the chat. And we have time for maybe one person to come off mute and share any patterns that they notice in what everyone in their group learned today. Anyone? Maybe there weren't any patterns. Maybe it was an individual experience for everyone. That's okay too. Oh, Leanne, thank you.
Someone please other than me.
Any change carries grief. That's true. So Ken says we all recently had health setbacks. We reacted to them. Go ahead, Donald.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out one thing that may have been relatively unique in my group. I was in the group with Bevan, the gentleman who shared earlier, and all I can say is too bad for the rest of you, you weren't there, because he's an incredible man, very sensitive, very humane. People in his life are lucky to have him in his life. But what we did talk about, and this sort of relates to someone's comment in the chat, speaking of our heteronormative behaviors in a patriarchal society, is we did deal with the issue of how this impacts men in particular due to male socialization. And that's an issue not only for men having to function, but also in how men are received in society, whether we are dealing with providers, caregivers, professionals, or whatever. When we are there as the sole parent or the sole caregiver, we're oftentimes left on our own, because that's not a place where men are expected to be. And so we welcome and we need everyone's support when we are in those spaces.
Thank you so much, Donald. Yeah, that's a really important point. So I'm so glad that you were able to share that with the group. So fantastic, everyone. So just to wrap up, I have two quotes that I'd love to share with you. So I'll share my screen again. So in Ashton's book, This Chair Rocks, she quotes Wendy Lusbader from her book, Life Gets Better. So, oh, can you see? You might be able to see yourself in there. Sorry about that. So Wendy says, sorrows in later life seem so relentless that we conclude that old age must be a dire time indeed. It is only later that we find that fresh life evolves out of each grief. And I'll end with this image, or will end with this image. So this is an image of heartwood. It is the cross section of a tree that is dead, but it doesn't decay. It doesn't lose its strength or its sturdiness. And Barbara Becker, who is a great thinker on these topics, who wrote a book called Heartwood, explains in that book that this metaphor that the dead, what we lose, becomes the heart of the living. So the heart of life. So I'll invite everyone to find strength in what remains and trusting the natural cycle of life and loss to help us better live our lives, and along with that, to age better too. Because of course, I always like to say that aging is living. And as we've learned today, living and loss are inseparable. So thank you all so much for being here. I'll really end with this slide, which is the website again. Maybe Kyrie can put it in the chat again, that Andy shared with you all at the beginning of the presentation. This is all things anti-ageism. You're more than welcome to go there and explore this topic more. And we see a lot of really fantastic questions in the chat. So if any of you have questions that you didn't ask yet, please put them in the chat now. And while we don't have time today, unfortunately, to answer them, it's kind of convenient, actually. So Kyrie and I had to skip out on a regular meeting that we have each week at this exact same time. And it's what we call office hours. So this is a little plug for office hours. It's a gathering of folks who just want to talk about this topic of ageism. There's some regulars here who hopped over since we skipped out on them today. They hopped over to this session. So thank you all so much for being here. You know who you are. And, you know, conveniently, it's at this time. Not so convenient for next week's panel because it overlaps by a half hour. So next week's panel with Let's Reimagine is from in this series is from 1 to 2 o'clock Eastern time. So I definitely want to encourage you to go to that one. And then if you're done, you know, when you stop at 2, you're more than welcome to hop over to office hours at 2 o'clock Eastern time. Kyrie will also put that information in the chat if she hasn't already. And we'll answer the questions that you've already asked in the chat. And if you have any follow-up questions, you know, feel free to direct them to Andy and he'll direct them to us. And then every time after, if you're free at this time, we know you are because you're here, you know, in 2 weeks, you can join us at office hours if you'd like. We'd be happy to have you. It's very casual. It's a great place to really explore this topic in depth. You know, we are always getting interesting questions and crowdsourcing some really fantastic answers to those questions. So with that, I will hand it over to Andy. But thank you all again so much for being here and exploring this with Kyrie and I.
Ryan and Kyrie, thank you so much. Can we have, actually, Ryan, I'd love you to stop sharing your screen so I can see our faces, we can see each other. Can we have a round of applause for Ryan and Kyrie, please? The two of you held such beautiful space for these folks, and I want to thank all of you who came today. You're so brave to share such vulnerable things with us, and I'm just really pleased how this all worked out, and I hope you'll all join us for the final session next week, same time. It's going to be on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be taking action with filmmaker Jean-Pierre Regis, activist Rebecca Danagelis, and Susan Silberman of the National Council on Aging. You might have seen the film Duty Free on PBS or at film festivals. It's the story of Jean-Pierre and his mother Rebecca's bucket list journey after she was sacked after 75 years working at a hotel because of ageism. And it's a very beautiful film, and we'll be taking steps towards change. This is how we're gonna close out this series. So I put the link for registration in the chat. If you enjoyed this experience, please consider donating. If you donated already to Reimagine, thank you so much. Please join office hours at Old School, follow them. It's a wonderful organization. I'm so pleased we got to collaborate on this, Ryan and Kyrie, and I'm so glad Ashton joined us for a little bit. So have a wonderful afternoon, everyone, and I hope to see you next week. Take good care. Bye, everybody.